You wake up with a clear plan for the day, tasks you already understand, goals you've reasoned through logically, even the exact steps written down somewhere. Yet by evening, almost nothing has moved forward. The same mind that can analyze complex problems at work, predict outcomes others miss, or learn new skills quickly ends up scrolling, delaying, or finding reasons to postpone the basics. The workout, the honest conversation, the consistent routine. It's not dramatic failure. It's this quiet, repeated slippage that chips away at your sense of self over months and years. You know better. Intellectually you see the path plainly, but the follow-through never matches the insight. If this pattern feels familiar, even uncomfortably so, hit the like button right now to mark the moment you're choosing to face it. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you get the next Stoic breakdown delivered straight to you. Let's go deeper. Number 1. Intelligence creates more escape routes. Intelligent people detect patterns and construct rationalizations at a speed most never reach. When discomfort appears, boredom during repetitive work, the sting of potential criticism, the plain effort needed for daily consistency, they instantly generate layered, believable reasons to step back. These aren't crude excuses like "I don't feel like it." They're sophisticated. "This timing isn't optimal for peak performance. Rest now will make me more effective tomorrow. This no longer aligns with my evolving priorities." Because the logic holds up under scrutiny, the avoidance feels justified, even wise. The higher the intelligence, the more convincing the internal courtroom becomes, turning every moment of resistance into a seemingly principled stand. Over years, this trains the character to treat discomfort as optional rather than essential. Epictetus made it clear, real freedom exists only when reason commands action, not when it negotiates with desire. When intellect serves avoidance instead of virtue, it becomes a tool for self-deception. The damage compounds quietly. Potential piles up and used while self-trust erodes from constant broken promises to oneself. Stoicism demands we recognize these escape routes for what they are, clever traps. The remedy starts with deliberately choosing the harder path, not because it feels good or optimal, but because it is right in the present moment. Only by repeatedly refusing the easy out does character gain real density. Intelligent minds must learn that true strength lies in simplicity. See the duty, do the duty, no debate required. Number 2. Overthinking replaces action. A capable mind thrives on depth. It dissects issues from multiple angles, runs mental simulations, weighs variables endlessly. This capacity produces breakthroughs in theory, strategy, and understanding. Applied to personal discipline, however, the same process stalls progress. Intelligent people think through why they should rise early, train consistently, respond truthfully in tension, or finish the unglamorous task. Yet the extended analysis itself becomes the substitute for execution. They live in elaborate mental rehearsals where everything is solved perfectly, so actual movement feels redundant or risky. Seneca repeatedly cautioned against becoming a spectator to one's own life, letting the mind observe rather than participate. The more brilliant the thinker, the easier it is to remain in that safe, internal space indefinitely. Character never solidifies because virtue is forged only through repeated action in uncertainty and discomfort. Without that forge, courage, temperance, and justice stay abstract concepts rather than lived habits. Stoicism insists we measure ourselves by what we do, not by the elegance of our plans or the clarity of our insights. For intelligent people, the discipline required is ruthless limitation. Set a short analysis window, then move even with doubts lingering. Imperfect, inconsistent action repeated daily builds far more strength than flawless intention ever could. Over time, this shift turns the mind from an endless deliberator into a reliable executor. The quiet reward is a growing sense of inner command that no amount of theoretical knowledge can provide. Number 3. High standards become self-paralyzing perfectionism. Intelligent minds see excellence with unusual sharpness. They visualize ideal outcomes, spot imperfections instantly, and hold an internal benchmark that ordinary people rarely approach. This vision drives achievement in many domains. When turned inward on personal conduct, however, it backfires severely. Starting anything feels futile unless it can reach near perfection. Maintaining a habit collapses after one missed day because the streak is ruined. The distance between the imagined flawless self and the current reality stretches so wide that closing it seems pointless. Marcus Aurelius wrote daily reminders to attend only to what lies in his control, his judgments, efforts, choices, not to unreachable ideals or external results. When intelligence fuels unattainable benchmarks, it dismantles resilience. Every imperfection confirms deep inadequacy instead of serving as neutral feedback for adjustment. Character requires the humility to accept that virtue grows through steady, flawed progress, not through sudden, flawless mastery. Intelligent people often need to redefine success downward to something brutally simple. Did I do the right thing today, even imperfectly? This lowered bar paradoxically raises real output because it removes the paralysis of all-or-nothing thinking. Over months of small, consistent wins, self-respect rebuilds on evidence rather than aspiration. Stoicism teaches that the wise person pursues excellence without being enslaved by it. Number 4. Pride in intellect masks inner fragility. A strong intellect frequently carries a subtle sense of exemption. Intelligent people observe others wrestling with basic consistency and quietly conclude their own minds operate on a superior plane. This isn't always loud arrogance. It's a background assumption that mental gifts somehow reduce the need for ordinary effort, routine, or humility. Epictetus hammered the point that no one escapes the requirement of self-mastery, intelligence included. When pride shields the ego from admitting ordinary weaknesses, character development halts completely. Why train what you already view as exceptional? The consequence is a brutal form of confidence that shatters under genuine pressure because it rests on comparison and innate ability rather than tested virtue. Stoicism builds unshakable character through brutal self-honesty. We are all capable of excellence and failure, gifted or not, and daily training is non-negotiable regardless of starting point. Intelligent people must cultivate deliberate humility that says, "My reasoning is quick, but my will is untrained and needs constant discipline." This acknowledgement opens the door to real growth. Each small act of obedience to principle, regardless of how beneath one's intellect it seems, strengthens the foundation. Over time, pride transforms from a defense into quiet assurance born of proven conduct. True inner strength emerges not from being smarter than others, but from being more reliable to oneself. Number 5. Delayed consequences hide the damage. Intelligent minds excel at projecting long-term outcomes. They calculate abstract futures vividly. Health in 10 years, career trajectory, relationships over decades, so they grasp distant costs better than most. Paradoxically, this foresight makes present indulgence more seductive. They can picture the recovery phase clearly. I'll push hard later. One skip session won't derail the overall plan. I'll catch up when motivation returns. Because consequences feel remote and abstract, immediate comfort wins almost every time. Seneca noted that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Yet here imagination works against discipline by downplaying the present cost of each surrender. In truth, every small compromise weakens the faculty of choice incrementally until self-control feels foreign. Stoicism counters by anchoring attention firmly in the now. This exact decision either fortifies or erodes character immediately, no matter how minor it appears. Intelligent people benefit most from treating every moment as character-defining. Remove the buffer of later and face the choice raw. When the stakes register as present rather than hypothetical, even the sharpest minds start choosing virtue consistently. The cumulative effect is profound. Habits solidify, self-trust returns, and life aligns with reasoned intention instead of drifting on clever justifications. This divide between intellectual power and character strength isn't rare. It's one of the most common traps for capable people, and Stoicism exists precisely to close it. The ancients understood that wisdom without disciplined practice remains incomplete and often harmful. You already have the insight. Now build the will to match it. Start today with one small, non-negotiable act of self-command. No excuses, no overanalysis. Number 6. Intelligence amplifies emotional avoidance. Intelligent people feel emotions more acutely because their minds process implications faster and deeper. A slight discomfort in a task registers not just as boredom, but as a cascade of potential wasted time, suboptimal results, or misalignment with long-term goals. This heightened awareness makes avoidance feel urgent and rational. Better to escape now than endure amplified regret later. Yet Stoics like Seneca pointed out that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. The clever mind inflates present pain while downplaying the cumulative harm of repeated avoidance. Character weakens as emotions dictate action under the guise of superior foresight. Epictetus taught that impressions must be tested against reason, not surrendered to immediately. Intelligent people must practice pausing to question whether the feeling justifies an action. Without this discipline, the will atrophies because every emotional signal becomes a veto. The pattern shows in daily life. Skipping the difficult conversation because the mind vividly rehearses conflict, or delaying fitness because it foresees soreness and disruption. Stoicism counters by reframing discomfort as training ground. Voluntary exposure builds resilience precisely because it hurts. Number 8. Superior insight breeds cynicism toward effort. Intelligent observation reveals human flaws everywhere. Hypocrisy in leaders, futility in routines, superficiality in goals. This clarity can sour into cynicism. Why bother with discipline when so much is meaningless or corrupt? The mind justifies withdrawal as enlightened detachment. Epictetus warned against letting external impressions corrupt inner judgment. True wisdom sees the world's imperfection, yet acts virtuously anyway. When intelligence fuels cynicism, it paralyzes action. Effort seems naive or futile. Character dissolves because virtue requires persistent doing amid imperfection. Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum to anticipate flaws without surrendering to despair. Intelligent people must counter this by focusing narrowly on personal agency. The world's chaos is indifferent, but my response is mine. Discipline becomes rebellion against meaninglessness. Proof that one person can live rightly regardless. Examples abound. The philosopher who maintains integrity in a corrupt court. The professional who upholds standards amid mediocrity. Each consistent act reclaims meaning through conduct. Over years, cynicism fades as evidence accumulates that disciplined effort creates pockets of order and dignity. Intelligence then serves creation rather than criticism, building character that withstands disillusionment. Number 9. Multitasking talent prevents depth of commitment. A sharp mind juggles ideas effortlessly, switching contexts, learning quickly, pursuing multiple interests simultaneously. This feels like efficiency, even genius. Yet depth requires sustained, exclusive focus. Character grows through mastery of one thing at a time. Seneca criticized the mind scattered across pursuits, calling it a sickness of never settling. Intelligent people often avoid full commitment because partial engagement yields quick wins without full risk of failure. The will weakens from never enduring the plateau where progress slows and boredom sets in. Stoicism values sustained practice. Virtues like justice and courage emerge only through repeated, focused application. To build character, intelligent minds must impose artificial scarcity. Choose one priority ruthlessly, defer others. Resistance will manifest as boredom or shiny object syndrome. Treat these as tests of resolve. Track progress in that single domain to see compounding effects. Depth brings mastery. which restores self-respect eroded by superficial breadth. The quiet power comes from saying no to good options for the sake of great ones. Over time, this focused discipline turns scattered talent into unbreakable resolve. Number 10. Intellectual superiority delays humble beginnings. Intelligent people often wait for the right moment or perfect understanding before starting, believing their insight deserves grand entry points. Humble, repetitive beginnings feel beneath them. Yet Marcus Aurelius rose daily to face mundane duties as emperor, reminding himself that philosophy begins in small acts. When intelligence postpones humble practice, character never forms because virtue demands starting where one stands, not where one wishes to be. The ancients stressed paralyzes, the faculty of choice exercised in ordinary moments. Waiting for ideal conditions trains the mind to see effort as conditional, not absolute. Stoicism insists we begin now, imperfectly. One honest reply, one early rise, one resisted impulse. Intelligent people gain disproportionately from this because their minds can later refine crude starts into excellence. Embrace beginner's drudgery as elite training. Others coast, you build foundations others lack. Each humble repetition erodes entitlement, replacing it with earned confidence. The transformation is profound, from waiting for worthy circumstances to creating worth through persistence. Character emerges not from innate gifts, but from disciplined humility in the everyday. The thread running through every outline is clear and unflinching. Intelligence, left untrained by deliberate discipline, does not elevate character. It often undermines it. The very faculties that allow rapid insight, elaborate planning, and sharp perception become instruments of self-sabotage when they serve comfort, pride, avoidance, or endless deliberation instead of virtuous action. Stoicism never denies the value of a capable mind. It simply refuses to treat it as sufficient. Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius all lived in worlds that rewarded cleverness and rhetoric, yet they insisted that wisdom shows itself only in conduct, consistent, courageous, temperate conduct forged through daily practice. The intelligent person who recognizes this gap is already ahead of most. Awareness of the problem is the first act of reason turning inward. But awareness alone changes nothing. The real work begins the moment you stop admiring your own clarity and start subjecting it to the test of reality. Small, repeated choices where the mind wants one thing and duty demands another. What makes this pattern especially insidious is how invisible the damage remains until years have passed. There are no immediate alarms, no public failures to force a reckoning. just a slow drift where potential stays locked in theory while life quietly narrows. The brilliant procrastinator, the overthinking perfectionist, the cynically detached observer. They all pay the same price. A persistent sense that something essential is missing, that self-respect is leaking away drop by drop. Stoicism offers no quick cure because character is not built in flashes of insight. It is hammered out in the ordinary hours when no one is watching. Yet the same mind that created the problem can also solve it, provided it is redirected toward humble, persistent training. Treat every resisted impulse as practice, every completed duty as evidence, every honest self-examination as progress. The ancients proved that even emperors and slaves could achieve inner sovereignty through this unglamorous method. No genius required, only willingness. You already possess the raw material most people lack, the capacity to see the stakes clearly. Use it. Stop waiting for motivation, for perfect conditions, for a version of yourself that feels ready. Start from where you stand today, with whatever small act lies in front of you. Get up at the set time. Finish the task you've postponed. Speak the truth you've softened. Resist the scroll when the mind begs for distraction. These are not trivial. They are the very arena where character is decided. Each victory, no matter how minor it appears, strengthens the faculty of choice and closes the divide between what you know and what you do. Over months and years, the compound effect becomes undeniable. A life aligned with reason, not merely understood by it. That alignment is what the Stoics called eudaimonia, flourishing, and it is available to anyone willing to train the will with the same seriousness they apply to training the intellect. If this video has stirred something in you, a recognition, a quiet resolve, even a flicker of frustration turned toward action, then make the moment count. Like it to affirm your intention, subscribe and turn on notifications so these reminders keep arriving when the drift begins again, and leave one honest comment below. Name the single daily choice where your intelligence most often outruns your discipline. Reading those truths aloud in public is itself an act of courage. It begins the work of closing the gap. You are not condemned to remain brilliant yet brittle. The path is simple, repetitive, and entirely within your control. See clearly, choose rightly, act now. Keep training. The strength you build will outlast every clever excuse you ever made.